I'd like to welcome those people who've just joined us for Future Communities, how to set up a creative business or social enterprise. We will be sending a copy of the summary presentation to everyone who's either registered or is here today. And thank you very much for joining us. We much appreciate it. We will be also sending you further information about the programme and other issues that we are going to cover later in the programme. It finishes in May next year. We'll have a number of other presentations and possibly, subject to COVID, of course, a live event, but we shall see a bit more details about that in due course. Okay, we're going to start now. I'm just about to share the screen and I will go through the presentation and I will take any questions you've got afterwards. You can put them in the chat or you can raise your hand on screen and talk to us direct. So I'm just going to share this now. Here it is. Right. Okay, there's our links. There's the website. There's the email address if you want to contact us, and there's our Twitter handle. Okay, right. This is a little bit more about me. I work for a as well as I've been the chair of Future Communities, which is a voluntary position. I work for a fundraising and business support organisation. And my background is actually in creative industries. I am still very much working as a musician, and I'm also involved with a number of creative arts organisations. If you want to know more about that, please contact me after the meeting. Future Communities works with many organisations delivering community support, training courses, partnership development projects, and a whole range of other services around fundraising. So the idea and the objectives of this workshop today are to support the development of your business or business idea, to help you identify your appropriate trading status, clarify its legal structure, focus on digital media needed to develop your services or products, help you identify sources of funding, including grants and loans, and maximize your promotion so you can compete effectively in the market, and help your business or social enterprise be sustainable through skills and business development. So we're going to cover a wide range of issues, and it has been a bit of a challenge putting this together in a presentation for 45 minutes, but here we go. We'll start off with what is a social enterprise first. We'll look at businesses in a second. Social enterprise, as defined by Social Enterprise UK, is in essence, social enterprises are businesses that are changing the world for the better. Like traditional businesses, they aim to make a profit, but it's what they do with their profits that sets them apart, reinvesting or donating them to create positive social change. And that can take a whole range of forms, everything from financial support to skill support, volunteer support, and a whole range of other things. What is a business? Business or small, medium-sized enterprise, that's what most businesses are and are defined as. Business generally refers to organisations that seek profit by providing goods or services in exchange for payment, which is pretty straightforward. However, businesses don't need to turn a profit to be considered a business. The pursuit of profit in and of itself makes an organisation a business, and that's where there's often confusion between profit-making and non-profit-making businesses. If you, here's a link, particularly for businesses there's a very good website I can recommend called the Entrepreneur Handbook, and it's got a lot of very useful information. Although, as you will hear later from Rachel from FSB, the FSB, Federation of Small Businesses, do provide a lot of support in that direction as well. So here are my top business and social enterprise related websites. You've got Social Enterprise UK, this is for social enterprises, obviously, which is the national coordinating body for social enterprise and who I occasionally work for. Then you've got others like the School for Social Entrepreneurs, who run a range of support for, it's mainly training and development support for people who want to set up social businesses or already have a social enterprise. Then there's a good link from the UK government, which leads into a range of other links. And here are a number of others. The Federation of Small Businesses, I've already mentioned, the FSB website. And then the other two are for private businesses, the Entrepreneur's Handbook as well. And that government site is a very good one as well, which goes into a range of other links. Gov.uk, set up a business. Sometimes if you're unsure, you need to get advice. You can get it from an accountant, solicitor, or other business advisor. Or if you join an organization like FSB, you will be able to get advice and support from them. There's a couple of other sort of creative industries related links from the Creative Industries Council, which is a body that represents people in creative industries, the Federation, and the co.uk site, which gives information about what that does. They did have membership does cost a bit for that. They did have some offers on certainly last year. I'm not sure whether they've still got them this year, but again, those sites are definitely worth checking out. Let's move on. One of the first things that you will need to consider is what your business structure would be. And you do have some choice. Obviously, if you wanted to set up a social enterprise, that is, you can't really do that as a sole trader or a self-employed person. It's much more difficult. You've got to set up some kind of an organization. And again, that government link is a very good one, which explains all the steps you might want to take. Other options on the non-profit side are a kind of charity form. These days, the most common one is called the CAO, the Charitable Incorporated Organisation, which is basically a charity that is registered at Companies House. But again, there are some issues around that, which I won't go into today, because we could spend quite a lot of time on that. A cooperative is another one. And if, for example, you live in Greenwich, which is part of the Peabody area we're covering, you've got the Greenwich Cooperative Development Agency, GCDA, who can help you. And there are a whole range of other organisations out there that can help you do that. The other option you've got, which is a form of social enterprise, is what's called a community interest company. That's a form of non-profit making company. And I may well cover that and some of the related issues in one of the further presentations that we do, because people often get confused by these. Once you realise where they're coming from, they're not so difficult actually, but if you're new to this, it can seem rather confusing. If you want to set up a profit-making business, a private business, what's called a company limited by shares, you've got a number of choices there as well. You can elect to become a sole trader. That is a self-employed person. And there's a link underneath, again, another government link, because you have to link up with a number of government organisations to do that, or a limited company, and then there's a link for that as well. So the best thing to do is to have a look at those links. They do explain them. They're very good on a step-by-step basis, because I'm trying not to reproduce things here that are easily accessible elsewhere. This is the link for setting up as a sole trader or being self-employed. If you start working for yourself, you're classed as a sole trader. That means you're self-employed, even if you haven't told HMRC, that's Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs, which is the department that deals with taxes for businesses and a number of other issues. You're probably self-employed if you run your business for yourself and take responsibility for its success or failure, have several customers at the same time, because they used to define it as having seven customers, but things are slightly more complex these days. So that's why they're saying several, because I've taken this off one of the government websites. Can decide how, when, and when you work. So that's, you're in charge of the work that you do and how you do it. Can hire other people at your own expense to help you do or to do the work for you. There are other factors that might mean you're self-employed too, but you need to check the link above. But the ones I've stipulated here are the most common ones for being what's classed as a sole trader or a self-employed person, is the other alternative term for that. The next is incorporation, or setting up a company. And there's different types of companies. If you're setting up a profit distribution company, that's usually done by shares, a private company limited by shares, as it's called. And you can set up a private company, and you could be the principal shareholder. What does that mean? Well, what it means is you can take a salary out of the company if you choose to be employed by it, but you can also take a share of the profits, or a dividend as it's called, which is still taxable, but it's taxable at a slightly lower rate. And there are some other benefits of incorporating companies. The principal one is what's called limited legal liability. So if the company failed, or it's sued by somebody for a large amount of money and they win the case, the company might go into liquidation. It might be it might have to be shut down, but your personal assets are not affected. Whereas if you are a sole trader and you have business debts, or somebody sues you, you can be sued or have legal action taken against you and your personal assets, which is one of the many reasons why you should consider joining FSB, because you can get legal and other support if these are unlikely events, but they do happen sometimes. So setting up a private company means that you have set up a separate entity which can employ you, and a limited company has limited liability, which I've just explained. It can employ people and pay all the legal expenses, including tax. One of the other advantages of a private company, and this goes for non-profit making ones, as well, is that the public sector and other commissioners prefer dealing with companies where they can, rather than sole traders individuals. That's not to say they don't deal with them, but it often makes it easier if you do have some kind of company structure, particularly if your business takes off or becomes sustainable on a medium to long-term basis. You should consider that. If you want to set up as a sole trader, the process is different for that. This is social enterprises. This is a business, a not-for-profit company with social objectives. It's a growing area for opportunities, and your social enterprise contributes to the community and/or charitable objectives, whatever they may be. The government often support these objectives. The other advantage, and people don't always realise this, of having a non-profit making company is if you set one up, you can benefit from grant funding as well as being able to sell your services. As a private company limited by shares, you can also sell your services. But what is more difficult is to be able to get grant funding. Again, it's not impossible, but it's much more likely if you've got a non-profit. And for example, some grant funders, like the lottery, is a good example of that. The lottery will only fund non-profit making organizations. They won't fund individuals, and they won't fund any private company limited by shares with shareholders. So, that's a blanket rule. They've got whatever good work you're doing, and it makes you ineligible to apply. Whereas if you've got a company limited by guarantee or a community interest company with at least 3 directors, you can apply for not only the lottery, but many other charitable trust grants. Who do you register with for self-employment or to set up a company? Well, again, the links are all here. If you're self-employed, again, the gov.uk website is a very, very good site to take up. And you can look, if you're thinking of setting up a company, to the HMRC website or Companies House website. Again, there's a number of links there. Another very good link for London-based organisations is an organisation called the London Business Hub, which was set up by the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, a couple of years ago. And that is a very good site, which I would recommend. It has a lot of advice and support for both the self-employed, companies limited by shares, and non-profit making companies and organisations as well. So again, all of those links are worth checking out to get further information. Another thing, I'm not going to say too much about this today, but as any kind of employer, whether you're self-employed, even if there's only you, because you may well have to deal with other people as well, you have responsibilities for health and safety, and you need to be aware of those because you are legally obliged, and particularly in an era like we're in at the moment with a lot of public health risks, you should be aware of them. Where do you get information about that? From the Health and Safety Executive. The website address is there, hse.gov.uk, and you can download a lot of, there's a link to one of them there, of publications. They do charge for some, but many of them are free. But and especially if you set up a company, you have legal requirements. You're also probably advised to take out relevant insurance as well. Again, I'm not really covering that today, but those policies are generally called employers and public liability insurance, because it's not just about anybody you work with. If, for example, if you're a training organization and you have trainees, if somebody has an accident at a live event, then you may be liable. So it's as well to check those issues out so you know where you stand. And the Health and Safety Executive is the government agency that deals with this, and will be able to provide you with some significant information about all of this. If you want to bid for any kind of public contract, and even sort of grants for some organisations like Peabody, for example, they will often ask you if you've got a health and safety policy or procedures. So again, you can get information about all of those from the HSE and a number of other related agencies. But look at that website if you want more information about that. The other area, which I'm sure you will all know about, particularly in an area like creative industries, where there's a lot of data related issues, and indeed intellectual property as well, often, is that your responsibilities with relation to GDPR, General Data Protection Regulations, which was a European law that came in 2018, but Britain is still adhering to that despite coming out of the EU. So if you keep any kind of data, because people often realize that, you know, online data and databases, etc., but even if you keep manual or written records, you still have to, if there are people out there that do that, you still come under the Data Protection Act, and you've got to register with the Data Protection Act if you keep any kind of data on anyone. There's the links. The Information Commissioner or the Information Commissioner Office, the ICO, will give all the information you need about that. But you do need to register with them. I think it costs about £40 now if you're keeping any kind of data about anyone, really. To put it in a nutshell, there are some other considerations, but I, again, haven't got time to go into those today. But again, you should be aware of data protection. And you also, if you've got a website, you'll need at the very least a privacy policy, as they call it, on your website to be compliant. So again, check that out, and it will explain what you need to know. Again, this is a subject I may return to at a future presentation if I get the demand for it, and I might get somebody in who is an expert on GDPR, but we'll see. That's one of the things about today. If you think there's something we should be covering in terms of creative industries and businesses, please let me know and we'll give it consideration. The next area is, as a fundraiser, one that I am very familiar with, which is around funding. So I'm going to give you some information about what is a key issue. The most challenging group to get funding for are probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, which is sole traders. It's quite difficult to get grants for sole traders. If you've got any kind of company structure, it's certainly easier. It's not to say anything is impossible, but it's the likelihood, if you're a sole trader, is not as great as with other forms. If you're looking to set up a private business, one of the best places to look is on that first link, which is the Entrepreneur's Handbook. It's got a approximately 60 pages, it is UK-wide, of grants and loans you can potentially access. Another good source for some of you, particularly non-profits and particularly smaller ones, is a site called My Funding Central. That does have a paywall on it for very small organisations. It's free, but you need to go on the site and check that out. Another one for social enterprises is the SIB group, which is Social Investment Business. They have a section on funds as well. There are other funding types as well. Again, one of the presentations I'm going to do in this series is one solely dedicated to funding. That will come in the new year, because obviously that's the biggest issue for many businesses, and certainly for many creative businesses, and especially if you're a startup, but also if you want to grow what you're doing as well. So there will be a presentation in the new year solely dedicated to funding issues. But this is a bit more about the Entrepreneur's Handbook. There's a section on grants and loans, what it entails. It's a comprehensive list of UK business grants, which they update on a regular basis. But you do have to review these websites. There's over 60 pages of grant funding throughout the UK. Here is another very good link. I mean, again, any type of organisation can look at this. This is the Government Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. That link is well worth having a look at. It will, if you go onto it and put in some information, it will throw up a very interesting search. I use that regularly for the organisations that I work with. I use some other sites as well, but that is definitely one I'd recommend to all of you. We've got quite a few women on the call today, so funding for women-led businesses and organisations, there are quite a few. I'm going to highlight one or two, but there are others. It just really depends in which sector that you're in, and what the structure of your business or organisation is. If anybody wants any information about that, if any women-led businesses want any information about that, if you can contact us directly, because again, this is an issue I will return to it when we do the presentation on funding. So I'm not going to go through it today, but I'll show you one or two. This is an organisation called Enterprise Nation. Some of you might be familiar with it. It's run by a woman called Emma Harrison, who of course is a female entrepreneur, and every year they have this thing called the Enterprise Nation Female Startup, and that's some of their previous prizes. But of course, Enterprise Nation is a big organisation. It's the benefits of publicity, but you can get everything from mentoring to prizes. There's some of the previous ones. And the title of Enterprise Nation Female Startup of the Year, which is of course good for publicity value. I think I've got one below. No, I haven't. Go back. Just go back. Here is another important funder for the arts, which is the Arts Council. Again, a lot of you will know about that. I mean, the Arts Council is a very good funder for artists. It's one of the few that will fund individuals. If you're an individual artist, it's worth checking out. They do get some lottery funding as well. So there's a lottery funding strand, which I think is up to about £100,000. But be warned, bid writing for arts projects, in my experience, is harder than any other sector. I'm not quite sure why that is, but that is the case. In fact, I've come across some artists, and their bid writing skills were so good that we've been offering them work with our company. So If you're good at writing arts-related bids and you can succeed, that is a very transferable skill apart from anything else. So again, it's worth checking out. But the Arts Council, what you have to do, they've got this system called Grantium, which is not great. It's not the most user-friendly IT system, I can tell you, but you apply for a persona, as they call it, and once you're on the system, you can then apply, but that does take a few days and you have to register with that. But once you're in there, you know, they have had significant government funding in the last couple of years, but of course that has been eaten up quite quickly because there are many other organisations that are distributing it, like the Arts Council, the Heritage Lottery, and many others. So it's very competitive to get that funding. Here is another one. Again, I'm not quite sure. You have to check the site because they do change. This is a funder that I do prefer personally. This is called the Paul Hamlin Foundation, and they've got an Arts Access and Participation Fund. And this is an example because they keep changing these grant programs around, but there's some on. If you can check that out, you'll see what they've got on currently. But that's one example, a fund to promote participation in the arts, and the grants were between £30,000 and £400,000 and lasting between 12 months and 4 years. I mean, again, most of the big funders have rolling application cycles. What that means is there's no deadline. As long as they've got the money, you can apply it anytime. And there are some smaller funds on Paul Hamlin as well, for those of you who are new to this or don't want to access at the moment larger sums. So again, I would recommend that. Next is charitable and trust funding. Again, if you're any kind of non-profit, there are a lot of charitable trusts out there, and that figure is what they're giving out in the UK every year. People are often surprised by this, but it is a very large sum, which is £5 billion a year in grants. That all that money is still there. It's not affected by the pandemic or recession or whatever. But of course, what it does mean in times like this is more people are applying for it. So you need to know where this funding is and how you apply for it. And there is some links. First one is an organisation called the Directory of Social Change. They have some interesting links. They're a non-profit making organisation. And the other one, which is a very good, several of the DSC sites are paywalled. This next one isn't, and it gives you access to a lot of charitable trust funds, which is a site called Charity Excellence. Well worth checking out. Here is another charitable trust for women-led organisations. It's called the Global Fund for Women. And again, this is an international fund. That's why I didn't necessarily put it under the women-led organisations, although it funds women-led organisations in itself, but it's on an international basis in many parts of the world. They do fund activities in some parts of Europe and occasionally in the UK, but you really need to check their website out. This is an American website, but they do fund internationally. It's a very well-funded organisation with some large sums, but they change the criteria regularly, so you need to check out that website. Here is another one for artists and artistic groups and artist-led organisation. This is called the Gerwood New Work Fund. Gerwood Arts is a long-established funder. Again, it's one that I really like, and they do all sorts of other things. And they did a lot of good work during the pandemic to support arts and artistic groups in all sorts of arenas. But that's worth checking out. But again, all of their funding is subject to change. This is Britain's biggest charitable trust funders. In case some of you don't believe that £5 billion figure, the Wellcome Trust, which is a drug company, this is its non-profit making arm and is the biggest charitable trust funder in the UK. It distributes over £700 million a year. Yes, that's right, over 700 million, and is one of the few that will fund individuals and companies. There's many strands to their activities, but the common strand is it's about health-related research and science throughout the UK. But that can be illustrated. But this fund is a good example. The Public Engagement Fund, through any creative methodology, i.e. film, art, digital media, drama, animation, etc., etc. So any creative media or means, and you can get a grant ranging from £5,000 to £3 million. Again, you need to look at their website for more information about that. But there's 14 or 15 strands, because there's money for work with schools, and individuals can apply for awards, etc., etc. But they do change them quite a lot. So if there's nothing there that takes your eye, then leave it for a month or so and then look again. It's worth checking out on a regular basis, that one. But that's Britain's biggest charitable trust funders. The exact sum is £770 million a year, and that's just one charity. It's a significant funder, but there are many others who are significant funders as well. Here is some other support for businesses. Again, some of these I'll look at later. One I would advise you to look at is the British Library, against an organisation I do some work for on an on-off basis. But they do a lot. So they have a lot of very good support on things like intellectual property, but a whole host of other areas. And they run a lot of events, obviously mainly online at the moment, but they have been running some live events, all worth having a look at. I'm not going to go through all of these, but the London Business Hub I've already mentioned anyway, and indeed the School for Startups. So again, all of those are worth checking out. This is the British Library's Intellectual Property Centre, which again, a lot of creative media these days is focused around intellectual property. You need to safeguard your intellectual property. This I would recommend as one of the best places to go. The British Library is a national institution we should be proud of, in my opinion, and it's got a lot of free advice and support about intellectual property, and they produce some very good guides to it. Again, you can get some support online with some group, possibly even one-to-one support, but you have to apply for it. You can do all sorts of market research and other things, but it's definitely well worth checking out. If you've got any kind of intellectual property you want to safeguard or register, they will tell you how to do it. If you went to a lawyer, somebody I know paid £3,000 and they got a very comprehensive service, but they could have got at least half that service free from the British Library. When I told the person concerned, they're never out of the British Library website or going to live events these days. So it just shows how good the support is from the British Library. And another area that some of you may well know about, and again, I'm not going to go into too much detail about this because we'll look at this when we look at funding, is crowdfunding. Many creative projects these days are funded or part funded through crowdfunding, through a crowdfunding platform. Probably the best known British one is crowdfunder.co.uk. Most crowdfunding platforms will charge you between 4 and 9% of what you raise. You don't have to pay up front usually. They collect any contributions that are made online. And then if you hit your target, you will get the funding minus their commissions. But for some non-profits on Crowdfunder, if you look at it, they are actually free. If you're a for-profit business, you may well have to pay, but if you're a not-for-profit, then you don't. And there's a number of other websites there. Kickstarter is one of them. Again, that used to be solely creative industries, but now they've got other things on that as well. That's a good site. But if you're UK based, then start with crowdfunder.co.uk. That's our funding guide. Incidentally, that's a publication that my business produces. If anybody's interested in that, let me know. We do charge for that though. I'm going to move on now to look at some of the other issues you will need to develop your business. But this is very much common wisdom because there's always exceptions to this. What most business experts advise is that to be successful in whatever you do, you establish a niche market. That is an area where you are or can become an expert in whatever it is, and people will come to you as a kind of go-to personal business to get that product or service or resolve that issue, whatever it is. These are 7 tips. Again, I'm not going to go through all of these in detail because we could probably spend a lot of time on this alone, but here are 7 niche marketing ideas for specialized businesses. Know your target niche market inside out. I'd say that's common sense, really. Solve your customers' problems. If they've got an issue, whatever it is, and you can help them to do it, then you're going to succeed. Rethink how you spread the word about your business. You know, that's one of the key business problems, marketing, which we're going to look at a little bit later. Keep tabs on your competitors. Again, that's common sense. See what they're doing. Be open to new opportunities and listen to your customers. Really listen. One of the things that often happens these days, somebody phoned me up this morning, is customer research surveys, because you can do that, of course. You can do it in many different ways. Many these days are online, but those are 7 ideas for establishing a niche market. Then following on from that is establishing your client base. How do you do that? Again, the best piece of advice is write a good quality business plan, or if you can't do it, get somebody to do it who can. You may have to pay them though for that, and make sure you're heavily involved in its development if somebody else is writing it, so that it's your business plan and not theirs, because that's always the big danger. You know, and take that from me as somebody who writes business plans for organizations regularly. What comes out of the business plan is a marketing plan or action plan around identifying the target market and how to access it. And then these days, there's a lot of digital marketing techniques you can employ out there, using everything from networking, tendering, and then other online platforms like LinkedIn and Instagram, or other techniques like MailChimp, all of those which we use. MailChimp is a customer service database that you can email people through. It's free up to 1,000 organisations, individuals, and it's definitely worth checking out for some of you. One of the key issues once you've got established is business development, because one of the key issues with any organisation or business is you have to retain your current customers and or service users, and then you have to get new ones to survive and grow your organisation or business. So you've got to generate leads and sales. How do you do it? There are many ways to do this. Often you can take up ads, although you need to be very careful. We've had some experience here with Facebook and other ads. They've not really worked. They work for some businesses or organizations, no doubt, but you have to be quite careful with those. There are other ways. You could use your LinkedIn profile and write articles and blogs. That's a good way to engage with people. And there are a whole number of other techniques. Partnership work is a good way to develop your business and to bring you into engagement with other organizations and businesses. Interim management, that's an interesting one as well, either employing people directly to do this work or even doing it yourself for other organizations. Again, that's something we may look at in a future presentation. I'm going to move on now because one of the questions that people always ask me, whether it's in terms of business or indeed any kind of non-profit, is around income and expenditure. How do you work out what to charge? There are a whole number of ways of doing this, and I've listed some of these there, but you do need to work out your financial needs. And one of the easiest ways is to double or triple whatever your hourly wage is. I used to work for a big consultancy firm, and on the first day they said to me, what you've got to do is you've got to, as a minimum, bring in 3 times your yearly salary. So that's how they did it. It was a pretty brutal way, I have to say, of doing it, but I was in a well-paid job, so it kind of went with the territory. What a lot of people do is using a daily rate for consulting, but you need to figure out what that is. And one of the things that small organizations do is, if you're offering any kind of consultancy services, is to pitch too low. You don't want to pitch too low, because I gave some of this advice last week. They just pitched for some work and got it at a very low rate. And they said, it's good that we got the work, isn't it? And I said, well, yes, but that client will always expect that rate in future. So it's not always the case. Other ways are setting your fees by the project. So if you know the project's going to last a number of days, you quote for the entire project. Another easy way is to find out what others charge and do that. Others are setting consultants' fees based on performance, so that's a kind of payment by results model. Again, you have to be very confident that you can deliver to do that, but that is another method that people use. Setting consultants' fees strategically using real life data. Again, this is I'm not going to talk too much about this. There are certain ways that you can set your fees by, for example, going on to organizational websites. I was on one a few years ago, which actually detailed what they did a consultant survey, and they detailed what the going rate was on a sector by sector basis. That's an interesting way of doing it. Another one is charging what everybody else charges in a particular sector. And finally, moving to solution-based fees. So if you offer a solution, whatever it is. If you achieve that solution, then you get paid on achievement of it. I mean, it's very similar to payment by results, really. But those are the main ways that people use to charge. There's probably others, but not that I could get all on one slide. We'll move on now. One of the things that people always ask me about is extending the client base. How do you do that? There's a range of ways to do it. We've talked about the online way to do it, but there are other ways to do it. Offline marketing, you know, mail shots, leaflets, etc., etc. Another one that many consultants I know use is quite simple: who you know. Trade events, trade associations, events, presentations, and networking. One of the things about Rachel from FSB, and one of the reasons why you should join it using her, is who she knows, because she tours businesses all the time, one way or another. And if you're looking for a particular client or got a particular product, Rachel is a good person to talk to, because she's been doing that very actively. So she's a good woman to know. Otherwise, there are a whole range of business networks out there. FSB we've already mentioned, but you've got your Chamber of Commerce, for example, in South East London. You've got the South East London Chamber of Commerce, which I'm a member of, although I don't really get time to get to many meetings, unfortunately. Perfect your elevator pitch. If you go on an FSB networking event, you usually get 1 minute or less to pitch to people, to tell them what you do. So that is a very useful skill to have. Sometimes it's quite easy, sometimes it's not so easy. And the other thing, of course, is, you know, can you think of any way to market yourself? You need to really think about that. There's no, with many of these issues, there's no one way to do it. Moving on a bit to marketing and promotion now. The traditional ways are to invest in business cards, folders, and websites. Others who don't do that might use leaflets, posters, or other printed material. And then these days, many people utilize social media that we all know about, and we just talked a little bit about some of that. There are many free events out there, either online or not so many in person these days, but they're still happening. If you're a community-based organisations, then local authorities, the NHS, and many other community and voluntary organisations organise these. Again, could be online these days. Some are live, but all worth checking out. Again, you can use a whole range of techniques here. I've already mentioned LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter, but there's others: Instagram, Pinterest for some of you. The other thing that many people do, and indeed I work with a number of organisations and individuals that offer services around Shopify, which is the main online store platform. And you can utilize that. There is a cost to that, and it's better for some organizations and businesses than others. You can get linked to other websites in terms of networks, and then there are trade and other bodies, like, for example, in this is Peabody's forum, so I'll put in a pitch for the Thamesmead Business Forum, which is a forum of businesses and others in this area that meet on a monthly basis and support businesses in the local area. Other things you can do is endorsement and capturing and recording recommendations. If you look at Trustpilot and things like that, or Google recommendations that people put on it, there's a lot of evidence to show that people will take notice of those rather than just what you say. The other way that many non-profits do this as well is around case studies. Although you have to be careful about the GDPR element, you can't use people's full names on this, and you have to have their permission for case studies. But there are many ways to do this. These are just some of the more common ways. Here's a few more. Speaking at events and conferences, writing articles or blogs, planning lever events to upsell potential clients. That's free services, training, research, dissemination, or sponsoring events, or organizing your own events at a venue or online when it suits you. So again, there's lots of things you can do. You've just got to choose the ones, test them all out, see which are the most effective and the ones you feel the most comfortable with. Finally, on this, surveys and marketing, surveying organizations, using organizations like SurveyMonkey is quite easy to do, and building a customer database is essential. That, for many organizations now, is the most guarded property, your mailing list, and it's got some value. So building up a mailing list over a long-term period is something that you must do these days. Again, there's a number of other ways. Ensure excellence in customer care, and a whole range of other things. Coming to the last section now. When you've taken all this in, one of the things you need to do is to hone your skills, and the easiest way to do that is to develop an action plan. Again, I'm not going to go through all of this in detail, but some of the simple things are: write your goals down. You know, what do you want to achieve during the coming period, next year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. Most business plans are 5 years, certainly 3 to 5 years. And then write your goals down. And then, you know, this is simple stuff, but you'd be surprised how many people don't do it. List the barriers to achieving success, whatever it is. You know, the first step to overcoming them is to define them, and then design a plan to reduce the influence of each obstacle and increase the chances that you'll be successful in reaching your goal. So again, that's sounds easy that way, but it's not so easy in practice. But that is an essential. These are essential steps. One of the things that comes out of a business plan is developing an action plan, which these things would be in. These are some other areas aligned to that. List the achievements of reaching your goals. If you reach a goal, then record it. List any subsidiary goals. You can break these down. One of the key things these days, and indeed there's going to be a lot of government funding very shortly for this, is skills improvement. One of the challenges of any organisation, my organisation, your organisations, is updating and improving your skills. And you have to get access to that. There's many ways you can do that, but you certainly have to keep that in mind. Getting support from others, you know, coaching is very popular these days. I mean, my organisation does coaching. I get coaching from other people I work with, and you can do other things that I've said as well. Like you can ask Gary or you can ask Rachel, because chances are if she doesn't know the answer, she knows somebody who does. So, you know, get support from others. That's very important. Nobody is the font of all wisdom, and you've got to check things out. Again, this just reinforces what I've said. Professional development is important, and your skills need to be updated. So you need to find some sources of help on this. And I'm listing a few here that I've already mentioned. The London Business Hub is one, and a range of the other business support websites I gave earlier. Okay, we've come to the end of this. So it's taken about 55 minutes, so I wasn't far out, and thank you for bearing with me. I hope you've found that of some interest. I'm going to stop the share and I'm going to take some questions now. I'm just going to look in the chat. Apologies, I haven't had time to look in it yet. Rachel's put her details in the chat, which is good, and you'll be hear from her shortly. There's Bethany's. We've got, Bethany, we've got a jewelry business who's going to speak to us very, very shortly. And so it's quite interesting, your comments about that. Does anybody want to ask any questions right now? If you do, put your hand up on screen through the hand, or just stick your hand up in the air if you're on screen at the moment. Kim Teasdale. You can unmute yourself, that's it.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Kim. We're just busy finalising and constituting our Thamesmead Community Cooperative, and I was just wondering, because what we're going to do is set up sub co-ops underneath that. I was just wondering what events would be good to go to network, to find people who'd be interested in joining something like that.
You're muted, Gary.
Sorry about that. I thought I'd unmuted. Probably the first thing to do, Kim, is to look at what voluntary networks are out there. You might want to talk to the people who run the Peabody Cultural Forum, or the Thamesmead Cultural Forum. You may be a member of that already. Yes, yeah, so you're a member of that. Look at the voluntary sector networks that are around. I would say if you're in Thamesmead, partly covers Greenwich Cooperative Development Agency is definitely a must, I would say, about some of these areas, although they concentrate on some areas or more heavily, but they maybe will be able to give you linkage with others. If you contact me outside of this, I'll give it some thought, and because there's probably some that I haven't thought about, and you can talk to Rachel as well. See if there's anything. How are you going to constitute your organisation? Is it going to be as some kind of company structure or something like that?
It's a cooperative. There's different.
It's a cooperative business, yeah. Can Cooperative join FSB, Rachel? That's one thing. Yeah. So if it's worth talking to Rachel, and because there's a lot of non-profits and others that are members of FSB these days, because it's a non-profit itself. And we
want to support people in the community to set up their own cooperatives under our cooperative umbrella, to give them the support, to smaller.
Yeah. Then I would definitely talk to GCDA, Greenwich Cooperative Development Agency, to see what help they can give, because they do some of the same work around that. But there's probably others. Of course, the other is you might want to look at Social Enterprise UK, because cooperatives are a form of social enterprise. And the chief executive of Social Enterprise UK, who I know very well, actually lives in Greenwich. So that's a big advantage. But it's actually free to many smaller organisations to join Social Enterprise UK, which others it's not. Okay. I can't see any other questions, so I'm going to bring in some of my guests now. We're going to do some short interview, and we're also joined by Sarah Garrod. Thank you, Sarah, for joining us. I'm pleased you've been able to join us today. I'll come to you shortly, and I hope you're feeling a bit better. but I'll start off with Judy from Delmora International, which is a Bexley-based jewelry business. So the first thing I'd like to ask you, Judy, is can you tell us a bit more about your business and the work that you do?
Well, hi everyone. My name is Judy. I am the founder of Delmora. Delmora is a brand from Delmora International Limited. We registered the company in November 2019. Basically, we sell jewelry and accessories for women. These products are made of stainless steel and sterling silver. Our online sales, we use channels such as Amazon, Etsy, and we recently launched our website. I'm the one who makes everything. I design, I make the jewelry, I sell the products, and basically everything is done by hand. Well, I buy all the products and I assemble all the jewelry by hand. It has been an interesting journey. I'm very excited to be here. Sorry,
sorry, yeah, I'm just unmuting myself. But thank you for that. What are the main issues you've had to contend with to start up and run your business? What have been the main issues for you?
Well, I have had two constant issues during this journey. I will say motivation and cash flow. So in terms of motivation, there are some moments in which you feel like you're working long hours with no rewards, mainly when you're starting. And I've been there, and my faith and my husband's support has been very, very helpful in those times. And the second issue would be cash flow. Cash flow means that I think you have to be clear of what to expect and when. I remember when I started my company, I met another entrepreneur that told me that he was in his second year with no salary. And I was wondering how that could happen, how you can live without a salary for 2 years. And now in my second year, and I am living that. So yeah, I think as small business owners, we need to understand that the cash flow is going to be slow, and it's a process with a lot of work, and you just need perseverance, basically.
Yeah, I mean that's not uncommon, to be honest, Judy. I mean that happened to me because slightly different business model. I continued working at my other job while I was setting up C&T Associates, the company I'm still running now. And I didn't join it as an employee. Somebody else was working for us part-time until there was enough money to make it sustainable, which did cause a lot of family pressure. So there's no easy way around this, but most new organizations or businesses, unless you're very lucky, you can expect to be loss-making in the first year, 2 years. I've started up another music-related business recently, and the first year was all investment, so we lost money then. I expect to lose money in the second year. The third year onward, well, we'll see. It looks more promising, but you have to view, you're going into stuff like this, whatever it is, whether it's a non-profit or a profit-making business, you have to look at it on a kind of long-term basis, really, because these issues do arise. As a woman in business, are there any specific issues that you've had to address to run your business, or is there anything you feel particularly will be a benefit to other women on this call?
Well, not particularly, but I am aware of many women that own businesses and they have to balance responsibilities such as being a mother or having or run their own businesses, and I admire them completely. I am a victim. In the past, I have suffered from violence and abuse, and as a person that have suffered that, I learned how to raise my voice and defend my rights when I think it's necessary. Del Mora, for example, supports the charity Lawa. It's a charity that is helping women from minority groups based in London to overcome any kind of violent situations.
Yeah, thank you for sharing it. That is terrible. I mean, what can I say? But if you want to put details of your charitable work in the chat for people to take on board, then that would be good. We'll also be sending out the details of all the speakers today and their services in a couple of days' time in a mail out to everybody who's attended today. What one piece of advice would you give to someone who's starting up or running a creative business right now? If you're starting today again, what would you say to them, or what would you do?
Well, at the beginning, I thought that to have a competitive and unique product would be sufficient, would be enough to be successful. And experience had taught me that is very important, but it's not the only thing. To have a business is so much more than that. And I think every business owner should be able to have a holistic frame or how the business works. In my case, for example, I have an MBA and my background is in finance and economics. So you shouldn't think, oh, that I'm going to dedicate to do something creative. But I decided to do it because I enjoy it. And yeah, I would say that just be aware that you would need to learn from many other things like marketing, finance, what is a profit margin, sorry, or you should learn about compliance and all of that.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And please put your details in the chat. I mean, Christmas is upon us, so if you're looking for any jewelry as presents, then you know where to look. In fact, you were running at an event over the weekend, weren't you, Judy? Which unfortunately in Bromley, which unfortunately I couldn't get to, or because I wasn't around. But if I had been, I would have gone to it. Yeah, so thank you for that. The next person we're going to speak to is Sarah Garrod. Sarah, I'm going to ask you the same questions. Please tell us about your creative business and the work you do to start with.
Hi, yes. So currently I work in photography and art, and I do a bit of music as well. But my career has kind of morphed over the years. I've always been self-employed. And that is one tip I'd give, that you have to be kind of fluid and follow A, where the market goes, and B, where your own interests go as well. So I actually started off, I studied theatre. I did a bit of work in the theatre, and I studied film, and then I did a bit of work in film. I became a third assistant director, a second assistant director, a first assistant director, a director. I was doing camera work as well. And at the same time, I started my own little video production company. And I was lucky to get some funding from the Prince's Trust to buy video camera and editing facilities. But so I was working as a director for like 15 years, very successful. Then I had 2 kids, and that changed the whole thing. I had a nanny, didn't like that. One of my babies was sick in hospital, and I packed in the whole television thing. And I took an evening class in photography, which is obviously very similar to what I'd been doing before. And really got into it. People started asking me to take photos. I started doing pictures of my own kids, of course, and then people were asking me to take pictures of their kids. And before I knew it, I was really, really busy taking photos of portraits. And then over the years, that developed into doing more kind of artistic photography. And I was selling work at galleries. And now, and since lockdown, I've been working more on experimental photography, and I get commissions and I get grants and things like that. And I've done big artworks in buildings, just today, I've got to finish this by 5:30. This might not look like much to you, but it was a commission to print a picture, which I did with sun printing techniques in this box that I was posted. I've got to submit that by 5:30. And yeah, so now I really enjoy doing photography, and I do workshops as well. So any questions? I've got lots of tips to give you. Well, you're muted, Gary.
I'll remember one of these days. What are the main issues that you've had to contend with to start up and run your business? I mean, you've given us some of them already, but is there anything else that stands out?
Well, I am self-taught in a lot of the things. I just, like the photography, for example, a lot of my competitors have got degrees in photography. I sometimes have a bit of inferiority complex about that, but it hasn't really held me back. Yeah, I mean, I did do a really good business plan at the beginning, and I've even helped other people do business plans and stuff. I think it's so important to do a good business plan and to keep an eye on your profit. If you want to make a profit out of an arts business, you've got to keep your outgoings as low as you can. So literally, when I've been running my business like the last year, I don't even have I don't really have cameras. I use like shoeboxes, and I use cameraless techniques as well, which is a bit extreme. But I'm all about the ecological side of things as well. So that's the key thing. I see a lot of businesses make the mistake of going out and buying lots of expensive equipment and paying someone to do a website for them and that kind of thing. And then they wonder why they're not making any money. Or you've simply got to look at it in the, sorry, let me just stop this call. You have to look at it as all the profit and income you make is completely dependent on the expenses that you have, and keep everything above board. Don't do any cash in hand jobs. I was inspected once by the tax man, and luckily they couldn't find anything wrong. It's very important to keep good records. Keep an eye on your competition. That would be my biggest tip, really. I think in arts environments, I think there might be a few arts businesses here, aren't there, Gary? Are there?
Yeah, there certainly are, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So you get this kind of holistic, networking is very, very important, but you get this kind of holistic, let's help each other network thing. But the thing you have to remember is, if you want to be top of your trade, if you want to be the person in an overcrowded market, if you want to be the one who's getting all the contracts, you've got to eye up all your competition constantly and see what you can do better than them. So one of my biggest tips is never stop looking at what your competition is doing, especially locally. And then my other tip is, the reason I kind of started doing okay on the music side of things, because I have a lot of fingers and a lot of pies, is I helped, this is a bizarre story, but I thoroughly put this down to how I got into music. I helped a lady in a wheelchair in Deptford who was stuck, and I got chatting to her. I was pushing her in her wheelchair, and I saw a sticker advertising a music event on her wheelchair, and got chatting to her. And to cut a long story short, that led to my first gig, which led to my second gig, and that's how I got into music. So always help other people in the community as well, because I do believe that kind of karma comes back and rewards you eventually.
Thank you. That's very interesting. You've answered many of the questions I was going to ask. So the last two, as a woman in business, are there any specific issues that you've had to address to run your business?
Yeah. Well, as I say, I was working in a very male-dominated career. I was in studios where there'd be 70 people, and I was the only woman there. And it was very difficult when I had small children and I was directing like breakfast television, and I was rushing out in ad breaks and pumping breast milk to take home to the nanny and stuff like that, it was almost impossible. It was totally exhausting. And I think even today, there's not many allowances for that. Having said that, I don't think I was ever sexually discriminated against in any of the work I've ever done. I think you just have to believe in yourself and get on with it. But I probably would still be a successful television director today if it wasn't for the fact that I had children, without doubt. But I'm quite glad I changed, because I found myself. I was really had no life when I was doing that job.
Yes, I can sympathise with that, certainly. Final question: what one piece of advice would you give to someone who is starting up or running a creative business?
So I've given those little pieces of advice. I will back up what Gary said earlier about writing your goals down. During lockdown, I went on a little Zoom, as we all did, with like a life coach lady. I can't remember her name, but I'll give you it if you contact me. And she introduced me to all sorts of things, such as writing your goals down for the next year, more or less personal goals, because let's face it, when you're self-employed, your personal goals and your business goals are kind of the same thing. You are your business. And she also taught me about journaling, which I've only just got the hang of. But again, that's a highly rewarding way of reflecting on what you're doing. So with the goals, she said, write down like your dream goals. And so I did this time last year, and I wrote down I wanted to have work featured in mainstream photography magazines, blah, blah, blah. And I wrote it down, and lo and behold, I've achieved it. I've had big articles. I'm now writing one for the Greenwich Museum, and I've had one published by Ilford. So it really works. It's some kind of positive thinking that I don't really understand, but do have a go at writing your goals down for the next year and look back on them, and you'll see that you actually achieved them. It's a really good feel-good factor, and we need those.
Right. Okay, that's great. And thank you to both of my speakers. Does anybody want to ask either Judy or Sarah a question while we've got them here? If you can both put your details in the chat as well, so that people can access them. Kim.
What support would there be for, say, single mums or people without partners, or, you know, those kind of people? Because a lot of times it's a lot easier if you are married or in a relationship or have that support to be able to become self-employed, but a lot of people don't have that. And what is there out there for those kind of people?
I doubt if there's anything really. I mean, I have heard of a studio opening up. I have my own little studio space in Woolwich now. I have heard of a studio opening in Lewisham, which is quite groundbreaking, where it's for women with babies, so you can take your baby in. That's just brilliant. But other than that, you're self-employed. You have to work your way around these things. As I say, I had a nanny, and I paid the majority of the money I was earning to a nanny so that I could continue working.
Yeah. Ian.
The most common question really to both of you. Sarah, how do you decide what to charge for your services? And Judy, how do you decide what to charge for the pieces of jewellery that you make?
Well, I do quote on like a job by job basis. For some of the stuff I was doing, like if I'm working as a freelance director, when I was working as a freelance director, if I'm working as a freelance photographer, there are kind of unwritten daily rates. So as a freelance director, I was charging hundreds and hundreds of pounds a day. If I'm doing like artistic work, the money is rubbish. But if you do go on something like, if you're an artist, there's the A/A-N artistnetwork.co.uk, and they give out what they think are standard rates for artists to get, and it's something like I think 150 to 250 a day for a fine artist on a project. So if I'm pitching for funding anywhere, for a grant or something like that with the Arts Council, whatever, you have to use those standard rates. So that's where I get those rates. But I mean, like the other week, someone who lives down the road who does holistic healing, very interesting lady. She works a lot with crystals and stuff. She was looking for a photographer, and I volunteered, and I did that for her very cheap because she's a neighbour. But so I just price it according to the job, really.
Yeah, that's called differential pricing. Another way is that's what we do to some extent. What individuals get charged is not what a big corporate or a big organisation would get charged, because simple fact is the big corporate can afford it. Somebody, you know, your neighbour or county, would you want to charge them that rate anyway, even if they could afford it, but probably can't. So, you know, that's something you always have to take into account. Judy, do you want to respond to that?
Yes. Well, first of all, I made a market research on how was the average profit margin in the industry of jewelry. And I found that supposedly it was a very high percentage. But when I started to make all my costs in my spreadsheet, and I charged all of that, I realized that I was out of the market, because I started to compare myself with the big ones, you know, with Pandora, with all of with Claire's. And yeah, no, basically now I make a bit of both. I make market research on my competitors, as you, Gary said earlier, but also I make a market research using the British Library reports called the Mintel and Euromonitor. And they are very good because they give you a range price in which you can, you know, base your prices.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think that's some pretty sterling advice from you two there. There's been a question for Sarah in the chat for anybody who's not read it. What's her business status, and how does she differentiate between her money and her business's money? And she's said she's a sole trader, and I keep good accounts and records of what expenses I spend on each job. Two sterling pieces of advice there. Yeah, I think it underlines what I said earlier. Okay, thank you. I can't see any more, so I'm going to introduce our final speaker this afternoon, which is Rachel Barham from Federation of Small Businesses. So welcome, Rachel, and thank you for hanging on. I have to tell you, I'm a member of FSB. If I was joining now, I would go straight to Rachel's, and that's what I would advise still, for reasons that you will soon see. So Rachel, over to you.
Brilliant, thanks Gary. Hi everybody. I'm going to run through a quick presentation. It has a lot of slides, but don't worry, I will talk through it quickly, and then I'll finish it off with a very short video. So bear with me 2 seconds, because I just got to bring it up. And I know sometimes it can take a little bit longer to show, so bear with me. Right, so I suppose for those of you that don't know what FSB is actually a non-profit organisation. We're actually a campaigning group, so we are led by our members for our members, and we lobby government, whether that's your local council or national government, on behalf of small businesses. And it's to make sure that the decisions that they make hopefully don't have a negative impact on your business, because quite often their initial plans will have. And as small business owners, we typically don't have a voice, but if we all come together, we can actually influence change, and that's what FSB is about. But we're the UK's largest organisation representing self-employed and small businesses. And because of that, we've also got the buying power to secure lots of services and discounts and preferential rates on the foundations of business, because all of you will be looking at the different setups, whether it's being self-employed, whether it's a cooperative, whether it's a social enterprise. It doesn't matter what your business is going to be doing, but you will be going into fields that you're either really passionate about or that you've got the experience in. But of course, a lot of business and the issues that come up are the bits that are outside of your skills. And that, again, is where FSB can help because of the services that we, I suppose, procure for our members. But we're UK based, so it doesn't matter where you are based, that we can support you. So you could be England, Northern Ireland, Scotland, Wales, does not matter. But our aim is to support small businesses. So small business is at our core, but there's loads of different ways that we can support you. So the first side of things, and some of these have already come up today, and believe it or not, I didn't set them up, and Sarah said something that made me think, oh, I need to talk about that. Judy's mentioned things, Gary as well. But one of the areas, we give you free business legal advice. So you can have access to tax and VAT advice. So you may have an accountant, but you may also be at the stage where you can't afford to, or you don't want to pay someone to do your accounts. You can access free tax and VAT advice. But alongside that, we also give you free tax investigation protection. So if for any reason you find, like Sarah did, that the HMRC decide they want to look into your accounts, we can actually manage that process for you. So you can concentrate on doing what you do best, and we will argue it out with the HMRC. Now, I suppose the one thing to add to that is just because the HMRC investigates you, it doesn't necessarily mean because you've got a bad accountant or because they think you've done something wrong. Sometimes it can actually be something as negative as your competition are telling them that you are doing something. They've got to investigate it. They've got to be seen to look into it. But of course, you don't necessarily know what to do. We'll do that for you. We give you free business legal advice. So I know Gary touched on GDPR. You can access advice because that has changed since Brexit. So most of us have got our heads around what it meant to our businesses. And of course, then it all changed when we came out of the EU. But whether it's commercials and contracts, whether you are recruiting or subcontracting, tax and VAT, health and safety, you name it, you have access as members to free legal advice. FSB puts about £1 million into legal advice for its members each year. It's 24/7, it's unlimited, and it's there to save you money. So more of your hard-earned cash goes into your business, cooperative, but your pockets basically. There's health and safety advice. There's a legal hub, and that's where you'll have access to about 1,300 documents that you might need as small business owners. So again, that can be templates, guides, fact sheets. There's things like terms and conditions, contracts, subcontractor agreements, employment, etc., etc. All of these documents you pay for typically when you approach a solicitor, or you take the risk of downloading them from Google and then potentially not being worth the paper they're written on. We have access there. They're kept up to date for you and they're free. So it saves you a lot of money again. So especially if you're setting up your business, it's a great place to start. And we can even work with you to tailor them. Either you doing it yourself with the advice and support, or you can pay solicitors via FSB to do it for you, but they'll do it at preferential rates. So it is a lot lower. There's also things like FSB Care, because that's about looking after you, because if you don't look after yourself, there is no business or organisation. We can also help you with your insurances, understand what you should have. We can quote you, and more often than not, we're cheaper, but for whatever reason, if you don't take it with us, we'll still act as an advice line. And of course, a lot of you, especially if you're artists, creatives, you'll probably do a lot of stuff on Instagram, Facebook, but it doesn't matter what it is, we'll also help you with PR and crisis management as well. So I've touched on this already in a bit more detail. So we can help you with legal advice. So it's a 24-hour legal advice helpline. You've got tax advice and support. The people doing the investigation are actually former HMRC tax investigators. And we also give you legal protection cover. So you can have the peace of mind if anybody comes at you and your business, we will protect you up to £100,000 worth of legal expenses per claim. The reason we do that is because quite often you may pay for legals on your insurances, but there's so many exclusions, and we all know what insurance companies are like. They will try and put any claim into one of those exclusions. So we give you legal protection cover, and it's there to give you the peace of mind that we're covering those. You do obviously have to follow the advice and support you're given, and there's obviously T's and C's, I suppose, to it, like everything. I'm going to skip through this, but if any of you do employ, then we can help you with that side of things as well. You've got employment, HR advice, there's protection, there's documents. We can even help you with payroll as well. I'll let you read through that very quickly, but it just kind of gives you a rough idea of what the Legal Hub's been used for, especially during the pandemic recently. The COVID support side of things it went off the scale. Obviously, every business needed to know where they stood. Some of them couldn't get the advice that they needed, and they came to FSB, and we were able to help them. So there's lots of support for lots of different reasons. Insurances, I've gone through, so flying through it. We've talked a lot about funding today. FSB has the funding platform. Now, they will be business loans or commercial mortgages, so they would need to be repaid, unfortunately. But they do it in a slightly different way, in the fact that it's a single application. When you put through a request or look into getting a business loan, you fill in your details. FSB funding platform can actually work out from the information you provide what the credit rating is. And then when they send the applications out to its panel of lenders, they take your details off. This means it doesn't leave a mark on your credit rating, because obviously the more loans we apply for, it actually can put a dent in your rating. So they take your details off so that when you get the offers back, you can make an informed decision. And even if you decide, you know what, I don't want any of these, it really doesn't matter. There's also business support. So again, some of these touch on some of the stuff we've been talking about. So via FSB Insurance Services, there's also support with business continuity planning. We give you some cyber protection as well, because obviously cybercrime is on the up. Lobbying, I spoke about at the beginning, but networking. We do absolutely loads of networking. I know some of you have been to them already. I co-host an event called FSB Bexley with Gary, but I also personally cover the whole of the southeast of London. So in the area, we have FSB Bexley, Greenwich, Lewisham, Lambeth and Southwark. I co-host Central London Social. We've also got a policy group around equality, diversity and inclusion. So I'm also quite heavily involved in the London and Thames Valley BAME networking and the London LGBTQ+. And there also used to be women in business, although I had to step away from that because I've got too many, I can't do them all. Plus all of the other ones that aren't necessarily FSB. So I can certainly give anybody ideas of networking in South East London, what they might be after. Members also get a quarterly magazine, and there's opportunities to have features and articles in there as well. That goes out once a quarter. And if you haven't seen it already, FSB also hosts its own business awards. You don't actually have to be members to apply for that. And don't sit back for any awards and wait for other people to nominate you. Nominate yourselves. It's such a great opportunity to get your business out there. Shout about it, because if you win, it brings massive amount of exposure to you. This just gives you an idea of some of the stuff on the website. So we've already talked about the lobbying and the campaigning. So there's lots of information on the website, and there's various different hubs that you can access. And there's always some information you can get for free, and then obviously more as members. Some of you may never have heard of us. We also do lots of masterclasses and webinars, and a lot of these are recorded. So you can actually view them on the website in the on-demand section. There's the First Voice magazine that I've talked about, but they also have a lot of podcasts as well. These are just some of the hubs. So there's a start up business with FSB. You've got the Recovery Ready, so coming out of the pandemic, and obviously with COP26 recently, we've also got the Sustainability Hub on there as well for you. Who can join? I'm not going to say everybody, because that would be a lie, but almost everybody, because I think it's something like 99% of businesses in the UK are eligible to join. So whether you are Self-employed, so one-person business, or you have employees, it doesn't matter whether you're a charity, CIC, social enterprise, limited company, etc., you are all eligible. And then if there are multiple directors or partners, there's also a reduced rate on those additional memberships as well. But membership is personal, so it covers you and any of your businesses. So if some of you have multiple businesses, it covers that as well. So we can save you money in lots of different areas. There's lots of referrals on Trustpilot. Obviously, we've picked out all the good ones because there will always be some negative ones on there, but it's online. We expect to see that. But luckily, the majority are all 5-star. So I think our Trustpilot review is 4.7, which is amazing. But you can have a look at those when you like. Cost of membership, it starts from £177 for the first year. It then actually reduces. That is based on 0 employees. If people have employees, then it goes up from there, but it doesn't go up a lot because at the end of the day, we are not for profit. So it's not there to make money out of you. This one is very short notice, but if you join today, because they were doing a Black Friday promotion, which FSB doesn't normally get involved in that, but I think because of the pandemic and what's been going on, they felt it appropriate this year. Then I can offer you 15% off joining, but you would have to join today. So if you are interested, drop me a message and I'll sort that out for you. Other than that, it's normally £177 for the first year. It then goes down to £147 for subsequent years because you only pay a registration fee in year 1. And that's that. I am just going to recap because obviously I know I've spoken through that so quickly without even breathing that I'm going to show you a quick video and hopefully it will recap most of what you've just seen there. So here we go. Bear with me. Let me find it. There was me being so organised to find it really quickly. And where are we? Maybe we won't.
Has anybody, have you found it, Rachel?
No, you carry on.
Yeah, we're just going to say, if anybody's got any questions for Rachel while we're sorting out this video, I can't see any.
Right, let me try it one more time. If I can't do it this time, all the practice before everybody came onto this, and
it worked. We tested it out before we started today. There you go.
I'm jinxed when it comes to this video, so. No idea why I can't do this.
Oh, okay,
Don't worry about it.
Not to worry then. Well, thank you everybody for today. Just to say that there'll be more of this next year. You're all on our mailing list, so I'd like to thank you all for attending today. And I'd like to particularly thank our 3 speakers, Judy, Rachel, and Sarah, for doing a really great job. And maybe we can have you on some of the others as well if you're interested. We've got a few more presentations to come, and I'm sure it's much more interesting than listening to me. So, but this is one of a series. There'll be more in the new year. So please stay in touch with us. You can email us afterwards. We will be sending, just to reiterate, a summary presentation out probably on Thursday. And that will have information from Judy and Sarah, and indeed Rachel. If you want to send us a flyer, you can put that on as well. You will get a copy of the summary presentation. So thank you all for joining us today. Please keep in touch, and there will be more soon. Thank you very much. Okay. Bye all.
Bye.